Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, my top 10 free agents the Texans could target after the 2024 NFL Draft. I'll look at maybe some guys who I think can really help the team, some fits, some needs for the team, and maybe a little bit of guys who have been rumored to the Texans. I don't necessarily think that they'd be the best fit or who I would choose, but maybe some rumors around some of these guys. I'll get into that later on in today's show. But before we get going, I want to know from you folks at home, which AFC South team worries you the most next year? Me and producer Tex, we were talking about this before the show started, and I think it might be the Colts. I mean, it's just because of the question mark with Anthony Richardson. How good is he? If he's really good, I think the Colts have a pretty good head coach. I think they have some pretty good weapons in Pittman and now A.D. Mitchell. Jonathan Taylor, the offensive line's not bad either. That's who would worry me the most out of these three teams. But let me know who worries you the most down in the comment section. Is it the Colts, the Jags? I don't think it's the Titans. I don't think anybody's going to say the Titans, but I mean, I couldn't leave them out on the list. So if you think it's the Titans, type the Titans, but it's either the Colts or the Jags. Let me know down in the comment section who worries you the most as we get into the free agent targets on my list. Number 10 coming in is Dalton Risner, offensive lineman, offensive guard for the most part. Played with the Vikings last year, 11 games played, no sacks allowed for Minnesota. And he's a plug-and-play guy at the guard position. And the reason why I have him in at number 10 is because, folks, I'm confused because there's a couple different ways this could shake out. This is one way the Texans' offensive line could look. You have Titus Howard at right tackle. You put in Jarrett Patterson at center, Juice Scruggs at left guard, Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, Shaq Mason at right guard. This would be number one, in my opinion, of the two options that the Texans could go with at the offensive line. And option number two is this. Blake Fisher at right tackle, Juice Scruggs at center, and Titus Howard at left guard. And I got ripped in the comment section of everybody saying, Titus sucks at guard. Titus is awful. No way. We drafted Blake Fisher to sit for multiple years at the right tackle spot or left tackle spot, which I don't think makes any sense. I think number two is more realistic, even though a lot of you have in your head that no way Titus Howard can play guard, even though he's played guard probably half the time he's been in the National Football League. But guard worries me the most right now because it's a question mark. So I want to know from you folks at home, what position worries you the most on the Texans right now? I think it's that left guard spot because I don't know what they're going to do, how they're going to go with it. They have multiple different ways they can do it. They still have former first-round pick Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M there at the guard spot. Could they move Juice Scruggs there? Could they put Titus Howard there? What do they do at that left guard spot? Or do they have anybody that they even trust at the left guard spot? Let me know what position worries you the most on the Texans right now. Next up, Emmanuel Ogbah, defensive end. And they've been looking at some defensive in depth, and Ogbah could be an option. Last year, played with the Miami Dolphins and lackluster after coming off an injury in 2022. Played 15 games in 2023, 5.5 sacks. He is just a rotational pass rusher at this point in his career. A decent one, but I think he is what Jerry Hughes was, this past couple seasons for the Texans as a guy who can come in, give you some decent pass rush snaps. You look at his PFF grades over the past couple of years in 2020 and 2021, he was a really good defender. That's why he got a big contract with the Dolphins. Fell off after his injury in 2022. So now, who are we getting in Ogbah? I think you're getting somebody who has some skill, who has some, skins on the wall here in the NFL. But at the end of the day, he's just a guy who's coming off the bench to play, a couple pass rush snaps every single game. Number 8, this one might surprise you because I don't know if the Texans necessarily need a wide receiver, but you never know with injuries and everything that piles up. And if the Texans are looking to add another guy, I think Hunter Renfrow could be a cheap, good option for the Texans. I think he could be a guy who can, help on underneath routes. You already have guys who can take the top off the defense in Nico Collins, Tank Dell. Stephon Diggs is a great receiving threat as well. But I think Hunter Renfrow could be an option if you're looking at somebody to, try to help out and be like a short to intermediate receiver. That's what he really did. That's where he lived in 2021 with the Las Vegas Raiders. That's what his niche was those, kind of routes, those kind of plays. And I think a guy like Hunter Renfrow can come in, really cheap contract, and play some decent ball for you if you need it. Let me know down in the comment section if you think the Texans have the best receiving core in the NFL. Because at the top 3, I think the Texans have the best trio in the National Football League. If you agree with me, go down and hit that like button, hit the thumbs up icon if you think the Texans have the top receiving core in the NFL. The top 3 guys, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell. I can't think of a 3 wide receiver set that's better than those 3 options right there overall in the entire NFL. Let me know down in the comment section if you think they're the best. Like the video. If not, comment who you think is a better trio than the Texans right now. I can't think of a single one that is better, more promising than the trio of Diggs, Collins, and Dell. Next up, and I alluded to it earlier in the show, but Dawuane Smoot is a guy who I don't necessarily think the Texans should go out and target. I don't think, I'm not really high on Smoot, but they have brought him in for a couple visits. They are, preliminary talks talking to Smoot. Last season with the Jags, 10 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble. Has been an okay career for him in Jacksonville. Not a star at any level, but same as Ogbah, this is going to be a guy that's going to come in and just give you, some pass rush snaps. Going to be a rotational edge rusher for this team. Obviously, you have your top 2 guys in Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, but just somebody who can maybe come in, supplement on some downs if they need a breather. That would be Dawuane Smoot. Now, number 6 on my list, and based on talent, he could be number 1. But for what the Texans need right now and how much it's going to cost, that's why I have Justin Simmons there at number 6. Before the draft, before the Texans went out and drafted Kalen Bullock from USC, I really was wanting the Texans. I was pushing for the Texans to go ahead and sign Justin Simmons. But now that they drafted Bullock, I don't think they're going to move on from Jimmy Ward or Jalen Petrie. So they kind of are already set there. Even though I think Simmons would be a massive upgrade, he would immediately come in and be your number 1 safety option. I just don't know if the Texans are willing to spend that much on Simmons, even though if you look at his stats last year, he hasn't fallen off. Coverage stats from 2023, 63.9 completion percentage, 324 yards allowed, 3 touchdowns, 8 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, and a quarterback rating when targeted of 85.9. And like I said, even though he's, getting up there in age, he hasn't fallen off. 3 interceptions this past year and then 6, 5, and 5 in the years prior. He is still an amazing safety in this National Football League. And I think adding him would immediately upgrade the position. I just don't know if the Texans do it, especially at the price tag that Simmons might go at in free agency. Now, coming up, my top 5 free agent targets for the Houston Texans after the 2024 NFL Draft. But first, if you haven't gotten them already, the brand new unis here for the Houston Texans, I've got the hookup for you. Go to chatsports.com/Texans jerseys. That link will send you to the Fanatics website, and they'll know that we sent you because you used our link. They have all the Texans jerseys all ready for you. You can get these new not throwback, but the Houston blue retro jerseys. You have the battle red jerseys as well. They have all the options for you. This one might be my favorite. I really like the white jersey. I think I'm going to end up getting the white Stroud jersey, and I'm going to go to chatsports.com/Texans jerseys to do so. That link is going to be available in the comment section and description of today's video. One more time, chatsports.com/Texans jerseys. Now, number 5 on my list, I'm going to go with Connor Williams. And I already kind of gave my reasoning before with Dalton Risner. But Connor Williams is a guy who, if you sign him, you can kind of plug and play him wherever you need. And for the Texans, I think this would be a very valuable piece to have, even if he doesn't start for you, because Connor Williams has played center, he's played guard, and he has played tackle. He has played all along the offensive line. So if you add a guy like this, almost like a super sub, to kind of fit in wherever you need, because the one thing I'm worried about with this Texans offensive line more than anything is injuries. We had, almost, I think, set a record for injuries before week 1 last year along the offensive line, had guys dropping left and right like flies, and then throughout the season, every other week, it was an offensive line injury. So adding a guy like Connor Williams, that's why he's in my top 5, because he could immediately step in and start at center. He could step in and start at guard. Tackle, he could be serviceable. I think he could be a decent tackle for you if you need him to come in and just play a couple games or just come in relief. I think Connor Williams can do that as well. That's why he is a top 5 target for me for the Texans in free agency. Another guy who I think is very versatile, and I've been screaming from the mountaintops for the Texans to sign this guy if he still has something left in the tank. That is Calais Campbell. He is still a dominant pass rusher in this league, even up there in age. He's high 30s, but still 6.5 sacks last year for the Atlanta Falcons. And he's a big guy who can really help the presence of that interior. I know you already signed guys this offseason like DeMeco Ryans, like Foley Fodakasi on the interior, Tim Settle as well. But I'm just not 100% convinced on this interior of this defensive line. Adding a guy like Calais Campbell on a one-year deal, a one-year prove-it deal, a cheap deal, he is chasing rings at this point. And if he really believes the Texans are contenders, I could see him saying, hey, I will sign for the vet men, come play for the Texans, and try to chase a chip one more time in my NFL career, and I would be totally game for that move. Next up on my list, Steven Nelson, bringing back Nelson to the Texans to be that starting corner. That could be an option here for Houston. Now, Nelson, still unsigned. I know the jury's out on Nelson and how he played last year. I know there's two different sides. Some people are like, you know what, he wasn't too bad last year. He was a serviceable corner. And other people remember the times of him getting cooked by guys like Amari Cooper in in multiple instances. So Steven Nelson, I still think he's a serviceable corner. And if you maybe later on, if he's not signed, if you're not really that hyped on Jeff Okudah or CJ Henderson, I know a lot of people think Kamari Lassiter is going to play on the outside. I just don't think so his first year. I think they might play him where he can succeed more, and I think that's going to be in the nickel position in the NFL. Now, he might prove me wrong, especially in OTAs and during the preseason, and be able to play on that other outside corner, but I still am not 100% sold. I like Kamari Lassiter. I think he was a good pick. I think he's going to be a good player. I think I gave it a B or a B+ on my draft grades for Kamari Lassiter, but adding another corner is something that I would really want, especially in a pass-happy league that we're in right now. If there's one free agent that you could sign for the Houston Texans, who would it be? We already had Nick Caserio hint earlier right after the draft that, you know, the Texans, they're towards the limit of guys that they can have on their roster, but there's going to be a couple cuts coming, and the Texans still have some cap space to play with. So there could be another signing on the near future, another reason why you got to hit that sub button. But if it was up to you, if you were in Nick Caserio's pocket, if you were like, hey, Nick, we need to sign this guy, who would that guy be? Let me know down in the comments section. I know a lot of you might be saying this name right here, Xavien Howard. He's number 2 on my list of Texans free agent targets. The kid from Houston. Could he come back home? Last season with the Miami Dolphins, 12 pass breakups, 1 interception, 45 tackles. You know, and he's a big reason why I am big on Kamari Lassiter. For quick sidebar, he ran in the 4.5s as well and has been a dominant corner in the NFL. No reason why Kamari Lassiter can't be as well. But last year for the Dolphins, these are his coverage stats: 62 completion percentage, 502 yards allowed, 2 touchdowns, 12 pass breakups to 1 interception, and a quarterback rating of 86.7 when targeted. I still think Howard can be a good CB2 in the NFL. I mean, just a couple years ago, he was regarded as one of the best corners in the NFL. 5 interceptions, 10 interceptions in back-to-back seasons, 2020 and 2021. Howard can still bring some juice to this Texans defense. And you see my top 3 Texans free agent targets, you'll see that I still think the Texans are going to go out and sign a corner because my number 1 option is Stephon Gilmore. Cornerback for the Cowboys last season. Stephon Gilmore, he ended up being their cornerback 1 and was pretty darn good if you ask me. I know against the Green Bay Packers, that entire Cowboys defense was shredded, but throughout the season, Gilmore held up pretty nicely for Dallas. 13 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, 68 tackles for Gilmore. I mean, a perennial Hall of Famer in Gilmore. I mean, he's played amazingly throughout his career. Completion percentage last year when targeted of 54.9, 4 touchdowns allowed, 13 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and a quarterback rating of 83.3 when targeted. And I think getting a guy like Stephon Gilmore would be a piece of the puzzle. That would be a, we are going for it all this season. This would be a push all your chips into the middle of the table, and we're going for a Super Bowl. No doubt about it. I think that would be what Nick Caserio, what this Texans team would be signaling if they signed a guy like Stephon Gilmore. So that's why he is number 1 on my free agent target list for the Houston Texans. Now, if you want to follow me on Twitter, or you can follow Chat Sports on Twitter as well, at Chat Sports. But if you want to follow me, hit me up at Jeremy Chuggs, giving you the latest around the Houston Texans, the dankest memes on the internet. And if you haven't already, go down and hit that sub button for daily Texans videos all year long. We are the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube for a good reason. So go down and hit that sub button and get free Texans videos all year long.